Not for the first time, not for the 100th either, King Lanius wondered what it would be like to rule Avornis. His ancestors for a dozen generations had been kings. They'd ruled. He, on the other hand, sighed and went on poking through the royal archives. Avornis was a proud and ancient kingdom. That meant it had been accumulating scrolls and codices and sheets of parchment and the occasional, often broken potsherd for centuries. Lanius, fascinated by history, dug through them as eagerly as a miner went after a rich vein of gold. The king, well, one of the kings of Avornis, looked more like a scholar than a ruler. He was a tall, thin, weedy man in his mid-20s, with dark brown hair that needed combing, and a beard with a chunk of dust in it down low on his right cheek, where he couldn't see it and flick it away. Instead of royal robes, he wore an ordinary, in fact rather grubby, linen tunic and baggy wool trousers. The servants had complained that he always came back from the archives covered in dust and dirt, and that robes so smirched were impossible to clean. Lanius didn't like to cause people trouble when he didn't have to. Dispirited sunbeams came through the dusty skylights set into the ceiling. Motes of dust Lanius had kicked up danced in the light. Somewhere off in the distance, far beyond the heavy doors that shut the archives away from the rest of the palace, a couple of serving women shrilly squabbled over something or other. Lanius smiled. He couldn't make out a word they were saying. He bent for a closer look at the latest parchment he'd unearthed. It talked about Yozgat, the great southern city where the barbarous Menteshe held the Scepter of Mercy for their master, the Banished One, back in the lost and distant days when Yozgat was not Yozgat, but rather Prusa, an Avornan town. Lanius sighed. "Why do I bother?" he muttered under his breath. Prusa had been made into Yozgat more than 500 years before, when the wild Menteshe horsemen rode out of the hills and took the southern part of the kingdom away from an Avornis racked by civil war. It had housed the Scepter of Mercy, once the great talisman of the kings of Avornis, for 4 centuries. All efforts to reclaim the scepter had failed, most of them horribly.